Hello, guys. I'm George Gonzalez, and I'm obsessed with making games. So, today we're going to talk about consistency in game dev, but not only just that, but consistency with direction so that you can not only work every day in your game, but also work towards a goal and you can actually finish your games. We talked about this in the comments in the last video that I made, and What's Up was saying, "Hey, I'm having a hard time being consistent." And we went over some questions and what he's doing. And today we're going to talk about how to create subtasks to stay consistent. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to show you a tip to help you with stamina, because the two factors with consistency is time and stamina. Why should you believe me? If you look at my school community and game devs, and here we have an opportunity to post what we're working on. And you'll notice that I'll post things every day on what I'm working on. This is the place to be accountable at. You'll see that I post a date and then what I'm working on at that day. And I have a lot of things that I post, and other times I don't label them by date, but I'm always working on something and posting about it. So the main thing is that you will notice that I'm doing it. I'm showing what I'm working on. I sometimes post a video. Sometimes other people comment. We talk about it. But the main thing is to stay consistent, you need to have subtasks. So let me show you what I mean for my game. So here I have a Monday board. You can use Trello, whatever suits your needs. But I'm going to show you how I would go about it. Because when we talked with What's Up, the main thing was, okay, first, I have a subtask. I want to finish an MVP. Okay, but how do I divide that into smaller pieces? So I'm going to show you what I do. So in here, you can see I have a full demo for SideQuest. That's my goal. And I have 3-4 weeks, 20 hours per week, because I'm working my regular job 40 hours. And then this 20, I try to squeeze 20 hours on top of that. So it's technically a 60-hour week on top of everything I have to do. But that's just what I have. And so you have to think about what kind of time do you have? And based on that is how you break these up. So for example, in my demo, I need to create spells. I need to balance the game, some puzzles that I'm working on. I also have priorities. So you can arrange them by priority, status, and then I have estimated hours, how long it's going to take me. And if these things, usually my days for working on the 20 hours a week, I have about 4 hours per day. And because of that, I try to say, okay, is this going to take me the whole day? If your day is going to be like 2 hours or 1 hour or even 30 minutes, then you want to do tasks that are 30 minutes or so. And that's what you can do in here in these lower tasks. So you can do UIs for spell upgrades, spell implementation. So these are subtasks that could take minutes, sometimes seconds, depending on what it is. So that's why I like Mondays, because I can create a task and then subtasks. You can do this in Trello too, I believe. You can use whatever you want. The main thing is that you need to understand, okay, how do I break this into smaller pieces? In this case, finishing the dragon spell. Player draws a triangle and it summons a dragon that you can control with your VR controller. And if you want that, I'll try to post a link in here so you can see that. But I have to say, okay, the UI for the spell upgrade. So I have a spell upgrade system, like a tree, skill tree. And so I have to create that. For every spell I create now, I have a UI spell. So I have to do that. So anytime I need a spell, okay, I need to put a UI for the upgrades. I need to implement the upgrades so that they actually work. So they hook up to the spell and they do stuff. And then I have to adjust. So in this case scenario with the dragon, I had to make sure the distance on the bones actually followed correctly, and it was a smooth transition. And so I had to get in and fix that, and then I QA the spell. So these are things I have to do. QA could take forever, but some of these are tasks that I'm like, I can focus on. The idea is, and here's a tip, is when you're scheduled to work on whatever you want to work on, before you sit down, you need to have something ready. So don't work on anything unless you know what you're working on. Do not sit at your desk. It's like, okay, today I'm going to work on and start wondering. You need to have a plan before you even sit down on your desk to work or stand up or whatever you're doing. And that's the key is, one is create the subtasks, and then don't work until you have a task. So in this case scenario, let's say I wake up and I say, I know, before I wake up, even the day before, I know what I'm going to work on. Because I say, okay, the next task is the dragon. So tomorrow when I wake up, I'm going to do the UI for the upgrades. So when I wake up, I say, okay, let's go to the UI. What do I need to do? Copy paste this, copy paste that, or get this icon here. Just create the UI, drag and drop the things that need to be dragged, or link all the things that need to be linked, and make sure everything's working the way it's supposed to. And then I test it, and then I fix it. And then I mark this as needs testing. If I can do the next one, because in order to test it, I need to make sure the upgrades are hooked to the spell. So I need to do the next one. And then when I'm done with that one, I can just say need testing. And I can go one task at a time. I don't have to think. I know what's next because I already wrote it down. So you have to take the time during the week, at the beginning of the week, to plan it out. And then you might say, well, what if I don't know? If you don't know, you can use ChatGPT. You can say, hey, ChatGPT, I need to make a game that does this, X, Y, and Z. How do I create an MVP? And the main thing with the MVP, you need to think about, let's see if I was going to make a MVP for my game. I would start here. Let me see. I create a new group of items, and I would say MVP, and then Magic Hunters or whatever, because this is the MVP. So let's say for the MVP, what do I need? Okay, well, I need what is the player controller? Player controller, like what's the player gonna do? Player controller, winning scenario. How does the player win? And then maybe like, is it multiplayer, right? So these are the things that, in my case, I know it's going to be multiplayer. So I need to set up automatic join. So the first thing I would do is I wouldn't worry about matchmaking too much other than automatic matchmaking. So the idea is that the player doesn't have to choose. It just automatically puts them in the next available room. And so as an MVP, all you need is the cores, the main thing. So you have a player. I need a remote player. So this means like the player that everyone else sees. It might be under this or whatever. So this is like, the subtask would be create VR rig, test the rig, polish movement, right? So these are the character. What is the player going to be doing? How are they navigating the game and interacting with the game? And that's all you need. You don't need UI. You don't need to join. And in this case scenario, because it's a VR game, I have them move to a specific area and they teleport to the next room. So maybe in here, I would have scene transition. You don't even need the scene transition thing. Just not the fade in and fade out, but the actual like moving of scenes. Then the trigger scene transition. So how we're gonna trigger that transition. So I would work on that. And then like the player win scenario, this was one of the hardest things for my game. And this is where it's scope creep gets in, because you're gonna start messing with a lot of things. And so you have to think about game jams. In my case scenario, at first, what I did for my very first, and I don't think it was like a real MVP, but it was a first step. You could have, because at this point, this is specifically what you're trying to improve on, is the core loop of the game. And if is it fun? If it's not fun, how do I adjust it? You need to answer a question. Like, is this mechanic work for my game? Is it fun? What is the aspect? What do I like about this? What don't I like? And so in my scenario was the casting. You'll notice I have a lot of old videos. If you look at my Magic Hunters videos, you can go back and you'll see how I started, where it's like, is it drawing a circle and then punching into the circle fun? And at first I was like, it's cool gimmick, but doing multiple tasks might not be as fun as just drawing the spell and having something happen. And so I cut it down to where you draw the magic and it just does something. It does damage instead of doing multiple steps. But at first, the first thing I did was I spawn you in the middle of a map, auto matchmaking. You don't even have to transition into a scene. You have a player controller and you fight monsters as they come. So it's almost like a horde mode. And all I did is spawn monsters that don't move, and all they do is shoot at you. So you could die. So lose condition. So I have to have health for the player. And so in here, player, maybe add health. And then you'd have to add respawn, because once you add health and dying, how is the player going to respawn? And these can come up as you do things, right? You don't have to know everything. But the idea is that as you create these tasks and you have a place to write them down, when they come up, let's say you're making the health system and you're like, oh crap, I have to do a respawn. Instead of working on the respawn, you add it as a task. Okay, so finish the health and then figure out the respawn. When you do you have lose conditions, win condition? Does it ever win? Right, like a horde mode, maybe it just kept going forever until you either quit or died. And then I had a leaderboard to test that, to see how long you could last. But then I was like, okay, now we need to get into the game. But this was a good first MVP. And then you're like, is this fun? Yes or no? And then you just noodle with these different mechanics, right? You have the player controller. We had cosmetics later on, but that's not a need right now. But what do other players see? And then you need to test with other players to make sure test with other players. So for example, if you have health, do the other players see your health and stuff like that? So these things can get overwhelming, but if you have somewhere to put them, you can add them as you go. Or you can say, hey, MVP number 2, or whatever you want to call it, you can add these same things and polish, right? So you can add all the same, like player controller, and you can, instead of saying adding to this and scope creeping, you can add a bunch of to-do lists for the next MVP. So say, okay, I made this part, what can be improved? And you just create a to-do list for the next time. But the main thing with it is that MVP means like minimum viable product. Like, what is strip everything, art, UI, just make it work, and at the core, what's your game? And so that gives you an idea of cut down scope, gives you direction, and now you have something that you can grasp as what to do. And a lot of this is with planning. If you plan right, then you now can divide these things into smaller chunks. Create a VR rig. Maybe you need in your steps, if you're learning, learn how to create a VR rig, or buy or it might be buy an asset from Unity. Or like it could even be ask around for ideas on VR rig based on your needs. But if you have this idea of what you want to make, you can now go and ask around, because oftentimes I've seen people are like, oh, what do you do for a VR rig or for this character rig? There's so many ways to do the same thing. Honestly, it depends on your needs. And so if you have this overall MVP of what you want to do, you don't have to have the future of the game. You just say, hey, this is the core mechanics. You can decide on what's the best course of action, especially if you have time or not. If you're trying to take 2-3 years, or you just want to do something quick, buying an asset will save you so much time. Because even if it's $90, think about it. How long would it take you, even if you get paid $9 an hour, it probably is going to take you more than 10 hours to learn how to do something. And so it's up to you what you're trying to learn and how much time you have. But that's not what we're doing here. We're doing consistency. So how do you say consistent? You create a plan, make subtasks. And if you don't know, that's why I have Endgame Devs. That's where I go in and share what I do, and also help others, so that we do weekly calls and we actually do this. Every week you have an ability to talk with me for 30 minutes, and we talk about your game and what your next task is and what you're going to do. And I help you figure this out too, if you need help. The last thing that I want to talk to you about is tips for stamina. Because let's say you have this great plan and you've done it probably 1,000 times, where you had this motivation to work, but then for some reason the motivation doesn't stick. It's not as fun as it used to be. And I've experienced it, where you have another job, you have maybe a family. I have 2 girls. There's a lot to do in the house. Yard work, cleaning leaves, mowing the lawn or snow, depending on where you live and what time of year it is. Things are broken in the house, you have to fix. Chores, things happen, right? You have full-time job, you come home, you're tired, or whatever it is. I don't even come home, I work at home. So even working, it feels like at the end of the day, you just don't have stamina left. And so one tip that I could give you is, if you divide these things into subtasks and you know how long it might take you, my challenge to you is to wake up earlier and spend 30 minutes doing something in here. So you have your idea of what you're going to do next. You created the subtask, and they're small enough that you can do in a day, maybe in 30 minutes or an hour. Wake up earlier than you usually do. Get your breakfast, whatever you need to do in the morning routine, but squeeze in your game dev for 30 minutes or an hour in the morning before you do everything else. If you do that, you will have more stamina for your game. And this will help you get things done. Because oftentimes what happens is you wait till the end to do what you love to do. Kind of like dessert. You say, well, I'm going to save it for later. The problem with that is that you're exhausted. And so you are running on fumes sometimes. So the first thing I would say is do it first. Give your all to your game and you'll see a difference. There's other ways to do that, like you can increase your capacity for stamina. But for right now, the best tip I can give you is to just put it at the beginning of the day. And I'm not saying all 4 hours, all 10 hours, whatever, just a little bit, so that you can get those small wins every day. So if you stay consistent and you add 30 minutes or an hour in the morning to your game dev, it will go a lot better, because I've seen it with my stuff. So usually the first thing I do, like for today, I'm giving you this video in the morning. So I do the video, I do a little bit of game dev, and then I get to work. That has helped me stay consistent, be able to hit my goals. And I'll give you more tips in the future on specifically stamina. But I think this will be key for you. Even if you don't have a lot of stamina, this will help you get the best bang for your buck in using your time wisely. If you have any questions, if I missed something that you feel like you're not getting, comment below. I answer. I made this video because of a comment. So if you're struggling with being consistent and I miss a tip, or you're still struggling, let me know in the comments and we can talk about it. See you on the next video.